Veterans are expressing outrage at the Pentagon's new medal to honor drone pilots and troops engaged in cyber warfare far from the battlefield. This new medal, called the Distinguished Warfare Medal, actually has a higher ranking than the Bronze Star and, of course, the Purple Heart medals given for bravery and, in the case of the Purple Heart, wounds in battle. The Pentagon says the medal reflects the changing nature of warfare in the 21st century. The veterans groups say something else that I won't repeat here. My next guest wrote an investigative report on the September 11th attack at the U.S. consulate in Libya. Among the shocking claims are that current CIA nominee John Brennan led secret raids that may have led to retaliation in Benghazi and the death of 4 Americans. Brandon Webb, former U.S. Navy SEAL; Jack Murphy, former U.S. Army Ranger, Green Beret, authors of the new e-book entitled Benghazi, The Definitive Report.
You had a situation where these U.S. units and agencies were operating in Benghazi, in a lot of cases not communicating with each other, and JSOC, which is Joint Special Operations Command, is conducting these raids, putting pressure on the militias and the terrorist groups. And then what you saw as a result of that is the blowback of Benghazi.
The Special Operations, JSOC, comes back and says, you know, we would never run an operation without the knowledge of the ambassador or the civilian representatives of the U.S. government in country. Your reaction?
It happens all the time.
Oops.
It's very often that they don't notify the ambassador and that the State Department isn't read on to certain special operations missions that are happening in various countries in the world.
And here we are, all these months later, the American people still don't have. We have your definitive account, but we don't have an accounting, Brendan, from the President of the United States or this administration as to what happened and why in Benghazi. Is that tolerable?
No, I mean, that was the main motivation behind Jack and I writing this book, just watching the spin and the hype on both sides of the party lines during the election, and really no clear answers, no accountability. It was a main motivating factor behind us writing the book. And
we are still listening to the former Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, acknowledge she wasn't involved in the operations that day. The president himself was not involved. Secretary of Defense Panetta said they had one conversation, and that was it. Does that astonish you?
It sounds like these people are trying to absolve themselves of guilt or any sort of association with what was happening that night. And I can't say what was going on in the Oval Office that night, but it's time for somebody to take responsibility. It's, you know, I would liken it to the Bay of Pigs fiasco, where President Kennedy came forward and he took responsibility. And we need somebody to do that now and dedicate themselves towards fixing whatever went wrong in Libya that night.
You gentlemen in your site, sofrep.com, again, that's SOFREP.com, which involves, as you would guess, all of the special operations folks out there, working and former. What is the sense, if I can call it a community, what is the sense among the community about what is going on now? I can't imagine morale being very high.
Yeah, well, I think a big issue that I've talked on lately is we have really no strategic objective in Afghanistan. It doesn't seem like we have a clear strategic objective with how we conduct our foreign policy. And we have troops, the special operations community. These guys are, men and women, are heroes, but they've been shouldering the burden for over a decade. You know, their family lives are suffering, and, you know, when is this going to end?
And that applies to not only special operations, but our military, across the board, and our intelligence community as well. It is strange to think that we have become a country where we have the elite troops, men and women like you, principally men, working in intelligence and special operations in our U.S. military across the world. And we're in Afghanistan more than a decade after having taken control of Afghanistan through the CIA and special operation forces that we put in there right after September 11th. You were one of the folks involved.
Yeah, and really, what have we accomplished in Afghanistan? Are we going to leave Afghanistan better than we found it? And I think the answer is no. And the big issue is we need special operations today. It's the nature of the way you counter this asymmetric threat. You know, we're at fighting a war of ideologies with these extremists, and they don't have borders, they don't have a rule book. So you need special operations, but you also need to address the preventative measures. Like, what can we do as a country to study the social and political environments that are producing these radical terrorists of tomorrow, the bin Ladens of tomorrow? And if we don't address that, we'll be at war for years.
And in the aftermath of Benghazi, it would definitely be a good time to take a hard look at our counterterrorism strategy and where we're going to move forward to in the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I have to say that those who've authored long wars, whether they be a David Petraeus, whether they be our military academies and our war colleges, were long wars right now, not very satisfying to the national interest or the ultimate aims of this country. Perhaps there is something beyond counterterrorism, counterinsurgency that this country needs to learn about and figure out. Gentlemen, we thank you.